God bless you, friends. I am excited to show you some things that are not seen, some things in the world that most people miss, some hidden aspects of our life that are like learning about treasure that is buried. So let's get started. This is the kings of the earth. And as I get going here in these days now, I'm going to be exposing more and more of what I'm seeing on the earth. And it's going to get tough. You may find this very difficult. These are hard things to swallow and very hard to fathom. They are unfathomable. But they're true nevertheless. So let's get started. Have you thought about seeing what is not seen? Have you thought about, seeing better what can be seen, which is obvious? We miss a lot of things in our life, and I want to reveal a bunch of this to you so that you will be prepared for the things that are coming on the earth at the second coming of Christ. I have a picture up here of the kings of the earth gathering for a meeting here, and we're going to come back to this picture because it says a lot, just that little picture. But for now, I'm just going to move that to the side and get started to reveal a little bit about the kings of the earth. I call them the 322 kings. 322. 322. Google it. 322 if you haven't. It's been around forever, and I'm going to unveil these things to you a little bit. Let's start by this word conspiracy theory. People say, well, this is a conspiracy theory. You're a conspiracy theorist. I want to tell you, don't let anybody tell you that without confronting them. A conspiracy theorist. Let's take a look at what that means. Conspiracy comes from the word conspire. Conspire. Make secret plans jointly to commit an unlawful or harmful act, to conspire against someone. Does that happen? Are there conspiracies? Are there plots, schemes, plans? Do people collaborate against other people? Do they? Or are we just theorizing? Let's look at the word theory. Theory. A supposition or a system of ideas intended to explain something, especially one based on general principles independent of the thing to be explained. It's a hypothesis, a conjecture, a speculation. Is it a speculation that people are conspiring? I'm going to equip you to handle people when they say that. You're a conspiracy theorist. As if it was a bad word, right? They want to demean you. Check out this verse in Psalms 2. I say to anybody who thinks we're just theorists, they don't know Psalm 2. And I will have no problem saying, quote to me from memory Psalm 2, if you know so much. This is what Psalm 2 says. Why are the nations in an uproar, and the peoples devising a vain thing? The kings of the earth take their stand, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against His Anointed. The kings of the earth take their stand, and the rulers counsel together against the Lord and His Anointed. The kings of the earth take their stand? Does this really happen? Do the kings of the earth counsel together against the Lord? I want to ask you a question right now in this conversation we're having. Answer me this. Do you know how the kings of the earth are taking their stand against the Lord, and how they are counseling together against Him and His Anointed? Can you cite how that is happening? Most people are unaware. I'm going to show you some things. I'm just going to scratch the surface on this. And it's way bigger and way more, I don't know what the word is. For us, we shouldn't be horrified or terrified. We have nothing to fear. But it is more diabolical and more evil and deep than I care to even unfold for you. But God has shown me what it is to great depths. They say, let us tear their fetters apart and cast away their cords from us. Do you know what this verse means? The kings of the earth say, let us tear their fetters apart and cast away their cords from us. Do you know what that means? I'm going to show you in this video what that means and what their goal is. You know, God says, I'll just give you a little bit more of this. God says, he who sits in the heavens laughs. That's himself. The Lord scoffs at them. Then he will speak to them in his anger and terrify them in his fury, saying, but as for me, I've installed my king upon Zion, my holy mountain. So, Christ will reign over all the earth, and these kings are going to have their day. But the kings of the earth are taking their stand against the Lord. And they say, let us tear their fetters apart. They're actually counseling on how they can cast away the cords. Fetters. Let's just look at that. Fetters. Well, that's not a word we use, is it? Shackles, chains, fetters. Cords. Ropes. Chains and ropes. So how are the kings of the earth chained and roped? Isn't that interesting? Before I answer these questions, I want to show you more. I want to show you that so this is Psalm 2. I was laying in bed one morning and thinking about the kings of the earth taking their stand and the rulers counseling together against the Lord and His Anointed. And I said, this is the 322 kingdom. This is the secret kingdom. This is the secret government. And then the Lord gave me Psalm 1. So He gave me Psalm 2, and then He said, Psalm 1 is jurisprudence. If you watched the other video that I created, it was Jurisprudence 322. Check out that video. But days following, He actually gave me it again, Jurisprudence 322, and He said Psalm 1 is jurisprudence and Psalm 2 is 322. That's just crazy. You can't even make that up. So let's go look at Psalm 1 here, jurisprudence. How blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the path of sinners, nor sit in the seat of scoffers. Juris means law. Prudence means wise or knowledgeable handling of the law, a prudent handling of the law. This goes on to say that we should be jurisprudent, a wise handling of the law. So this person who is blessed, his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in His law he meditates day and night. And my soul grieves for the people who call themselves believers, how little they know of the laws of the Lord. It just really concerns me that the theology of the land today is actually that the laws of God have been crucified on the cross. And I've had many people argue that the law of God is crucified to the cross in Christ. Many people, and most pastors. And I say, no. Do you know what was crucified at the cross? Not God's eternal law, but what? Sin. Sin was crucified at the cross. Not His law. His law confronts us about sin and convicts us. So this is not obsolete, you guys. If you meditate on the law of the Lord day and night, you will be like a tree firmly planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, its leaf does not wither, and in whatever you do, you will prosper. Okay? We're just opposite of the wicked, because the wicked are not so. They're going to get blown away in the judgment like chaff. So it's good to be jurisprudent so that you're not fooled by what the kings of the earth are doing. But why would the kings of the earth want to throw off the fetters and the cords of God and His Anointed? Why would they want to do that? What does that even mean? Do you know what that means? Oh boy, wait till I show you. Wait till I show you this. This is just incredible. But when you know it, it all makes sense. So we have to go here to Genesis 3:22, from which we get the Skull and Bones 3:22, the Secret Society 3:22. So let's go over here and look at Genesis 3:22. What does it say? The Lord said, "Behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. And now he might stretch out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever." This is a very deep verse that I could spend an hour on, because those who are in Satanism know this verse very well, and they have spent many, many months unpacking this verse. They do not want to come to God. They want to be free of God. So I'm not going to unpack it in great depth for you, but I will tell you a few things that will shed a lot of light on the way they think. They believe that Satan tempted Adam and Eve in the garden as an angel of light and shed light on the situation which set Adam and Eve free. He set Adam and Eve free? What did he set them free from? They believe that the Creator God is the ogre of law that put Adam and Eve in bondage to this law. They believe that Satan opened their eyes of good and evil so that they could become like God. And that through that they could live forever. Now this is all a lie. What I'm telling you is not right thinking. It's wrong thinking, right? I mean, you know that, right? But that's what they believe. They believe that Satan is the good guy and God is the ogre. Now that's important for you to understand when you understand global situations as they're unfolding today that are rooted in Satanism. And I got to tell you, I was told, you don't need to know this, Mitch. You don't need to know this. I was told this by pastors. That just focus on God. Just focus on God. And that's what I did for 30 years. I just focused on God. But I have to tell you that God is the one that turned my eyes to this. Now, Satan didn't turn my eyes to this. God did. And I have stories to tell you about that. But God opened my eyes and said, "Mitch, you're naive." I'm not going to get into that right now, but God opened my eyes to understand the beliefs of these people so I could understand what they were doing and why they were doing it. And that's my job with you, is to help open your eyes. So this old kingdom, I want to open up the history of where the kings of the earth, these people get their start. So we're going to be talking about where these people get their start. So let's go way back into the book of Genesis. And let's look at that together. Let's look at the book of Genesis together. Genesis 10:8 says, "Now Cush became the father of Nimrod. He became a mighty one on the earth. He was mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel." The beginning of his kingdom was Babel. Really, this is the first time the word kingdom is even mentioned in the Bible. The word kingdom. Man began to create a kingdom, and it was at Babel. And you know the story of Babel, but I want to give you a theological significance of that story. So they built this tower. They said, "Come, let us build for ourselves a city and a tower whose top will reach into heaven, and let us make for ourselves a name. Otherwise we will be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth." And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And the Lord said, "Behold, they are one people, and they all have the same language. And this is what they began to do, and now nothing which they purpose to do will be impossible for them." So the Lord saw this tower that they were building. They were building this tower. They were building this tower. It was actually like a stairway to heaven. A stairway to heaven. Now, what do you think God was concerned with there? Was he concerned that these little ants would build a stairway to heaven? Was he? What was theologically going on here? Was he concerned that they might have a throne above him if they kept building? Is that what this means? They began to do this, and now nothing which they purpose to do will be impossible for them. So God came down and confused them, confused their language, and he scattered them over the face of the whole earth, and they stopped building the city. Therefore, its name was called Babel. It was called Babel. He babbled, their language was babbling. He changed their language from one to many. And that's where the nations originated. But what was God concerned with regarding them? Was it really that they would build a tower to heaven? Nope. He saw their heart. He saw their heart. So what was their heart? Well, let's look here at the heart of Satan. This is the king of Babel. The king who is over the kings of the earth. This is Satan. It's also the king of the earth. So it has a physical manifestation too. And it's prophetic. "How you have fallen from heaven, O star of the morning, son of the dawn. You have been cut down to the earth, you who have weakened the nations. But you said in your heart, I will ascend." So this is the goal of Satan. I will ascend to heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. And I will sit on the mount of assembly in the recesses of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. So Satan, his desire, you see all these I wills? I will, I will, I will, I will. His desire is to usurp the authority of God in the life of the people. And so he's a deceiver, and he lies and he cheats and he steals, and he causes people to do things like this: build a stairway to heaven. And so in the hearts of the people, they wanted to make a name for themselves. That's still the problem today. They wanted to make a name for themselves. They said, "Come, let us build for ourselves a city, and a tower whose top will reach into heaven, and let us make for ourselves a name." So they have different motives than you and I. They want to make a name for themselves. And that's the problem. And behind these kings of the earth behind the kings of the earth are spiritual forces. There are spiritual forces. This reminds me, just to show you, this was the king of Babel. This is an important thing to see. I want to show you this. Check this out, you guys. So if we go back up here on Isaiah 14 to verse 4, he tells him that you will take up this taunt against the king of Babylon and say. So these are all things to say against the king of Babylon. So we read down here on verses 12 through 14, this is the king of Babylon. And the word Babylon comes from the word Babel. So when you read Babylon in the scripture, what does it mean? It's the nations. It's the kings of the earth. It's not Israel. It's the kings of the earth. So there's a distinction between God's people on a physical form. Now there's a spiritual form too, but on a physical form it's Israel. And then the nations on a physical form. Physical forms manifest spiritual realities. Did you get what I just said? Physical forms manifest spiritual realities. So when you're learning prophecy, it's very important to learn that one principle, that you can see on a physical level spiritual truths. So your eyes will be open to the unseen realm. If you can see in the realm of the seen, you'll be able to see in the realm of the unseen. Does that make sense? So the king of Babylon, we're going to get to him a lot here in these days to come. We're going to talk about the king of Babylon. It has a spiritual power behind him, which is Satan. So how do I know that? Well, the scriptures talk about that all the time. And this is a good verse for you. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. So we see our struggle against people, but there are spiritual forces behind those people. And they are rulers, powers, world forces of the darkness, spiritual forces of wickedness. What do those terms mean? What do they mean? They are dominions. They are kingdoms over the earth. God has set spiritual forces over the kingdoms of the earth. There are powers that are in the unseen realm. That's our struggle. So I ask you again, how do the kings of the earth take their stand and the rulers counsel together against the Lord and His Anointed? Do you see it? In the days to come, I'm going to show it to you. But I'm not done yet. So if you made it this far in the video, I'm going to show you some things that are really, like I say, just unfathomable. Just amazing. So can you see our struggle? Can you see it? Can you see what the builders are doing? The builders of the Tower of Babel, the builders. Can you see what the builders are doing. These are the builders, the ones who rejected the stone. This precious value that we have then is for us who believe. But for those who disbelieve, the stone which the builders rejected, this became the very cornerstone. What is this verse saying? What is the cornerstone that the builders rejected? This is the cornerstone of God's building. What is God's building? You are God's building. He is building you up as living stones. But the builders rejected the cornerstone, which is Christ. The cornerstone is for them a stumbling stone, a rock of offense. Yep, that's what it is. They rejected that stone. Check this out here. We'll look at this in context. Check this out. For this is contained in the scriptures, behold, I lay in Zion a choice stone, a precious cornerstone, and he who believes in Christ will not be disappointed. This precious value, which is the verse we just read, then is for you who believe, but for those who disbelieve, the stone which the builders rejected, this became the very cornerstone, and a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, for they stumble because they are disobedient to the word. What do you mean they're disobedient to the word? They want to tear off the fetters. They want to tear off the fetters. Oh, let's go back here to that verse, the kings of the earth. Let us tear off their fetters and cast away their cords. What is the fetter and cord? It's the law of God. Everybody who wants to get out from under the law of God. But you say, Mitch, aren't we? We're no longer under the law of God. We're no longer under the law of God, right? Right? That's true. For righteousness. Oh, deep theology. The law of God can never make you righteous. Does that mean it has no value? But our relationship to it has changed. Our relationship to the law of God has changed in Christ. What does that mean? I'll get into that in the days to come. We have a different relationship than we did. But we don't crucify the law of God because of that relationship. In fact, Paul says, no, may it never be. In fact, we uphold it because the law is being written on our hearts. That same law is being written on our hearts. Have you heard of these things? Well, I don't want to get away from myself here. Let's go back and see. So let's go back to these verses. They rejected the law. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for God's own possession. There is a kingdom of priests that are rising up on the earth, a kingdom. So the kingdom of the earth, Babylon, and those who are being called out of Babel are joining the kingdom of our God and being built up as precious stones. But this is the stone that the builders rejected. The builders are who? Who are the builders? So I'm going to show you some things that are just unbelievable right now. Check this out. On the back of the money is a pyramid. Does that look familiar? Why do you think there is a pyramid on the back of the money? Why? And why does it look like that? Stairway to heaven. That's what it is. It's a stairway to heaven. It's a Tower of Babel. Why does it have an eye on top of it? Why? What is that eye? Oh boy. I'm going to show you in the future what that eye represents. I'm going to show you what it is. The eye of Horus. The eye of Satan. That's the pyramid right there. And these are the builders. Who are the builders? They're the masons. The builders are the masons. What's a mason? A mason is a builder, a worker in stone who builds the Tower of Babel. That's a mason. What's a Freemason? Wait a second. A Freemason? What would a Freemason be free from? Could it be cords and fetters? Freemason. A 33-degree Freemason is a Satanist. Well, you know that, right? A Satanist. And the people who are building our governments are part of all of that. The kings of the earth take their stand against the Lord and His Anointed. I'll show you a few things here. There's the pyramid that I'm talking about here, right here, as the kings of the earth meet over the pyramid. They are the builders. Hold on, it gets more. Hang on. Oh, brother, these people. So on the back of the dollar, you might not have ever seen this, but maybe you have. They created this. It's actually a pentagram or a upside down 5-pointed star, but you can add this point on it as well. And in the circles on the side, it spells out M-A-S-O-N, or Mason. Did you know that? They're the builders. Boy, they're ingenious, aren't they? And they created this Star of David. Star of David? They created this Star of David on the back. Is it really the Star of David? This is the Star of David? This hexagram? This pentagram? This is the Star of David? No, it's not. It's only what you're told. So this is what this is what Israel flies, is this. Oh boy, what a tangled web of lies we're living in here. It's so hard to untangle all this for all of us. I'm struggling how to do this for you guys. So this is a Masonic star. It's actually an upside down star with the symbols of the Mason right here. You know, this is what it looks like in Masonic. This is all Masonic. This is, just put in Masonic star. That's what it looks like. This is actually the Eastern star for the women. But it also looks like a satanic star. So I did this little, so here, let's go back here. So here, it's the satanic star. I put in this satanic star. You can do this and image it. It's the same star, so I'll toggle. You see any difference between the Masonic star and the satanic star? No. Why is that, Mitch? Well, because the satanic star has the head of the goat inside of it. That's Baphomet. You know all this, right? You probably know all this. This is Baphomet. This is the one who runs the global governments. The one who runs the global governments. And Washington, D.C. is laid out with this pentagram. But you know all this, don't you? You know all this. This pentagram that is in Washington, D.C. You certainly know this, don't you? That the lay of the land is by Masons. Oh, I haven't even begun to scratch the surface of this. They also, if you look at Washington, you can just do this yourself and then zoom in on it. Zoom in on it. So you could first of all see there's a pentagram here, and then you can zoom in on it. But wait a second, what's that? What's that right there at the United States Capitol? What is that? What's that? Do you know? What is that? Can you see what that is? Do you have trouble seeing the owl at Washington? Why would there be why would the landmarks be in the shape of an owl? Look it up. Do some research. Masonic owl. Look it up. Bohemian Grove. Look it up. Moloch in the scriptures. Moloch. Israel was led away by the god Moloch. Look it up. Moloch, an owl. Look it up. Well, you're saying, well, this is tiring, Mitch. I'm not interested in all this. Why do you waste your time with all this? Is it a waste of time? Is God's word meaningless when he tells us that the kings of the earth take their stand and the rulers counsel together against the Lord and his anointed? Have you memorized that yet? I think you should memorize that. It's not a waste of time, you guys. Nope, not a waste of time. That's an owl. It's in Washington. Home of the brave. Land of the free. Land of the free? Free of what? We're a Christian country though, Mitch. Oh, brother. Here, you guys. I was told you don't have to know anything about Satan and his plans. Just keep your focus on God. Well, God slapped me across the head and said, you've been looking at me for 30 years. Take a look around you and see this. And I turned around. This actually happened. I'll tell you the story someday. But I turned around, and the horror that I saw was unbelievable. How did I learn all this? God had to wake me up. So he's waking me up to the schemes of the devil. And woe to those who scheme iniquity, who work out evil on their beds. When morning comes, they do this evil, for it is in the power of their hands, and they do it. But Paul says, so that no advantage would be taken of us by Satan, we are not ignorant of his schemes. Paul said we are not ignorant of his schemes. I want to ask you something. Is that true of you? Or are you ignorant of the schemes of the devil? Do you know what a false flag is? If you do, good job. If you don't, I'll teach you. I'm going to teach you more about the schemes of the devil in the future and what has been happening on the earth so you could see with spiritual eyes. And as a result of coming to Christ, we are no longer to be children tossed here and there by waves and carried about by every wind of doctrine, by the trickery of men, by craftiness in deceitful scheming. And he says also, put on the full armor of God so that you will be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. Days are coming, you guys. The second coming of Christ is upon us. It's at hand. Put on the full armor of God that you may be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. And I'm going to strengthen you for the storm that is coming upon the earth. And God is going to do a cleansing. But you will remain. You will be strengthened. And you will not waver. And you will not be moved. You will not be shaken. And I'll show you how. Until we meet again, blessings, you guys. See you soon.